This episode is made possible by Advantage Communications, excellence in two-way radios. In an event of a pandemic, public services will be completely surged out. Supplies will be critically limited. According to the World Health Organization, the outbreak of swine flu in North America has pandemic potential. It can spread from human to human. Flu pandemics usually occur a couple times each century, but the timing is unpredictable. Economic damage would likely be one of the worst effects of a pandemic, as workers stay at home and consumption and trade plummet.
The most important thing, I feel, at the time of a pandemic is the need for God, the need for religion, the need for church service. It doesn't matter if it's Christian, synagogue, Hinduism, or any of those. It's just a matter of God in our population, in our communities. However, people will not be able to go to a church at the time of a pandemic because of social distancing. Obviously, the more people that are gathered in crowded spaces, the germs can spread easier. So churches are basically come to a halt. So if we need God, if God's going to be the pillar of the community at the time of a pandemic, how do we bring God to the people, which will hold them together? My name is Sean Canoni. I'm the director of the Homeless Voice Shelter and newspaper. We also have a pandemic agency that is used to educate the community members as well as other homeless shelters at the time of a pandemic. Everybody is kind of scared when we hear the word pandemic. If you looked at the president's report on pandemic, President Bush, in the report it said that any community that would rely on the federal government at the time of a pandemic, that community would be set for pure tragedy. When we hear that, we do panic. However, the idea to take away the panic is to be prepared. Most importantly, the churches will be closed on social distancing. So if God is the pillar of the community and churches will be closed, how do we bring God back into the community? And that's where Churchbook.us comes into play. Social networking. So we're going to have social distancing, but then we're going to have electronically social networking where people can help each other. Back in the Spanish flu, people would play cards in the morning and they would be dead by evening. So that's how bad these things can be. And if we go to like where the Spanish flu was, between 50 to 100 million people died in that period. They never could get an accurate count because they were so fast trying to get rid of the bodies. As the President's report plainly indicated about a town or a community expecting the federal cavalry to come in, we know it's impossible. There's what we call a national stockpile. This national stockpile is loads of medication, loads of food, loads of blood, surgical equipment, doctor's equipment, and plans to help the community. Unfortunately, that's only meant for a few disasters at a time, maybe a few hurricanes. With a pandemic, it is the whole country. Therefore, the stockpile can probably only come into play for such medications as antivirals such as Tamiflu and, of course, a vaccine if there's one readily available. We cannot expect the government to do it. It's going to be us. It's going to be Mrs. Brown down the street helping Mr. Peterson. It's going to be Mr. Peterson helping Mr. Paul, who may need some electrolytes because he's sick and dehydrated. Hospitals will be surged out. So we decided to come up with, if you will, a Facebook, but for churches, so we're calling it Churchbook. Now, will we be able to treat each other at home? Sure. If we run out of supplies, how do we get supplies? By going to Churchbook and social networking with your friends. You see, if you have a local church, and that local church has 500 members, 500 homes in that general area, those 500 people are going to take care of each other. This is the only possible way that we're going to be able to survive and to really help each other out is by networking. Again, you have a church here, and a church there. These people report to that church, these people report to that church, and so forth. If we couldn't communicate in a mass way, how would Mrs. Anderson get the Pedialyte she needs for her kid? She's not going to be able to get it unless they have it at the stores or unless she's stockpiled it herself. The good thing about Churchbook in non-pandemic times is that, let's just say you're sick and you don't want to go to church that day. You can't make it to church because you have something very important that you're doing that day. Your pastor can upload a message any day of the week, it could be Sunday, it could be every day he can give a daily message to. And that message will appear on Churchbook. It'll have the chat room function, direct messaging capability, but important if you're a church and you're the pastor, set up a group so people join your group so it stays geographically. That's the little difference between like Facebook and Churchbook. With Churchbook, we want to slim it down to a zip code, and we want people to like be in a zip code where not only do you work in the church area or participate in the church area, but at the time of a disaster or a pandemic, the zip code is going to be very, very important. So having your church minister set up its own group, and then you join in that group, is very important geographically at the time of a disaster. That is a key you'll have to remember when joining up the Churchbook. At the time of a pandemic, you social distance yourself, meaning that you stay apart. You won't go to concerts, you won't have sporting events, school will be closed, daycare centers will be closed, some stores will be closed, non-essential things will be closed, supplies that you need to stock up on. Food. You need food. Pandemics sometimes last for an 8-month period. They go from wave to wave. In our particular warehouse, we have enough food for about 8 months with supplies. This is our pandemic warehouse, which is our disaster warehouse, which is our regular warehouse as well. We have things such as Lysol, bleach, hand cleaner, alcohol-based, gloves, goggles, gowns, toilet paper, a stockpile of food for at least 8 months. It's important to understand these things come in waves. The waves may last up to 8 months.
This is what we call our bird flu room, where when and if, and God forbid, we ever have a pandemic, we're like pretty much set.
So be prepared. The more prepared you are, you don't have to go out of your house to buy or get anything. So that means it's safer. Having this pandemic warehouse is something that we have. Hopefully you set up a room in your house that has the same sort of supplies. Don't take this lightly. Take it seriously.
I mean, for any given emergency, we are like pretty much set and ready to go. And we're ready to respond in a moment's notice.
If you're a minister, a preacher, a priest, a rabbi, go today to www.churchbook.us. It is a very important function, not only for our everyday life, but at the time of an emergency such as a pandemic. You are going to be the one people turn to from your community. Be the leader and walk the talk. Join Churchbook today. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can do your messages, and the people can be close as ever with Churchbook US. God bless and have a good day. The government will not be there at the time of the pandemic, and it's going to be you, and me, and the guy down the street helping mankind. And this is one way to do it.